Hello, can people hear me?
Yes, Patricia, welcome.
Thank you. Are we ready?
Yes, you have now 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. And my apologies. I would like to share my screen if that's okay. So what I'd like to present today is a paper that has just been published in Media, New Media and Society. It's called Access Shrugged, the Decline of the Copy Left and the Rise of Utilitarian Openness. I'm pleased to be presenting this with my colleagues Aram Sinreich, Maggie Clifford, and Seth Shaheen. All of us are from American University. Aram, myself, and Seth are faculty, and Maggie is our student, our PhD student. What we did in this study was to trace public interest in various search terms on Google Trends over the period 2004 to 2018. We've selected a number of terms, such as the ones I have highlighted here, which I will not read for you in the interest of time, but which have which represent a range of terms that have been popular in this period to signify public interest in copyright, and particularly around the issue of tight copyright, copyright that is limiting of reuse of material. And as some of you who might be old enough to remember can recall, in 2004, there were a number of search terms that were evocative of the fact that people wanted to change the nature of copyright itself to be more flexible, with less long copyright terms and more exemptions. And what we discovered as we looked at Google Trends in this period was that those terms which were the more utopian terms, such as Creative Commons and open access and open source, they were most popular at the beginning of this. And the free culture, free software, and also fair use and public domain. And we trace in this article the history around those terms and the reasons why they might be popular. We found we used factor analysis to take all the terms and determine which ones stuck together. And so we found that these utopian terms stuck together, and so did terms reflecting creative activities, such as remix. And then there's a set of terms we called utilitarian, which we called these terms utopian, creative, and utilitarian because of the characteristics we thought that they shared. And the utilitarian terms we found to be more terms about providing open access and open educational resources, and terms that are more used by libraries today. So I'm going to go back to these three groups, which what we did was to pick these are groups that we picked to be able to demonstrate that the size of the different terms are very different. Utopian terms are much bigger than these terms like open access, open educational resources, or even the creative terms. But what you can see is that there's a pattern here that will look familiar. Utopian terms gradually decline over time, although they continue to be much larger than these utilitarian terms. The creative terms rise in this middle period. These three periods have been designed according to how these clusters formed. So this cluster of creative terms, of terms that people are making work with, they are they tend to be most popular after the internet, the World Wide Web is widely circulated and tools for being able to share develop, but they have not yet been commoditized. By commoditizing, I mean things like having filters on Instagram and having meme engines that mean that you don't have to remix it yourself. You can get there's functions for that. And so these terms start being searched less on Google Trends about the time that those new commercial applications come in. And then there's a term that is the least popular overall, but that rises over time. And that is the group of terms used by librarians and people interested in providing free access within the terms of copyright today, or easier access to copyrighted materials. Thus, you see these three patterns. We interpret these three patterns in the following way. There has been a decline, although there still remains a substantial interest in utopian approaches to copyright reform. Approaches to copyright reform that denounce the limits of strict copyright and expand the options for potentially unknown innovation. That has declined over time, but remains interesting. There is a substantial interest in creative remix and work that involves creative uses of the capacity of digital to copy and then be remade into something else. But that somewhat declines with commercial applications. And then there's a pretty steady increase from the middle of this period on, which is continuing to grow in open access materials and open educational resources. You'll notice that in each one of these cases, there's a little kind of a dip and an increase at the very end. That is actually typical of the end of any Google Trends line. So what do we conclude from this? We provide other ways of measuring these and show you, we also break out each of the lines so that you can see which ones of them are the most popular, but I will not go through all of this for you. You can see that if we map those trend lines over time, you can see this is, for instance, group 2, remix, mashup, Creative Commons, open access, compared actually. Yes, these terms follow a certain similarity. You can see the similarity we're talking about. And then open access, open educational resources in A2K, I'm sorry, I said open access earlier, A2K, show pretty similar lines. And you have to, the caveat here is that you have to realize that these are mapped against themselves, so that this is the point at which these terms are the most popular. This is the time when OER is least popular. And all that Google Trends will measure is the, given the total amount of times that people have searched for these terms, when was it the most popular, when was it the least popular? So that's what you're getting in the limits of Google search. We did this in order to to sort of take the temperature of public interest in copyright reform. And our interpretation is that while there's been a decline in a utopian perspective, there's actually been a rather hopeful increase in a more utilitarian approach. And we think that this is important for anybody who is working in a policy realm or on public campaigns, to realize that while that interest in the utopian approach has not gone away, there's actually a rising interest. And I would submit potentially among copyright policymakers, as well as in the general public, in these more utilitarian approaches. And if you were building public campaigns, you would want to be aware of all of that. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions. And thank you for this time. My apologies for having technological difficulties at the start. And I'm looking at chat to see whether there are any questions. And if anybody is raising their hands, I do not see any hands raised. And looking at Q&A, no open questions. All right, I'm happy to receive questions on any of this in the future. All of our contact information is available through New Media and Society. And of course, you can find any of us at american.edu as well. We're all members of the School of Communication at American University, but much of the work that we have done in the past has been done with our esteemed colleagues in the Washington College of Law, with whom we are always very honored to collaborate. Thank you.